Like to welcome everybody to our meeting today at noon. I am unfortunately out of town. I have a couple family events, so I'm not here, but Councilmember Navarro and our staff are well prepared. So we'll be able to continue with this meeting flawlessly, I'm sure. It's important to understand that no formal votes or decisions about city programs, policies, or budgets will happen here. Our role is to explore various topics with staff and stakeholders and community members and to make recommendations to our council colleagues. We want this process to be transparent, inclusive, and easy for you to be a part of wherever and whenever you choose to be. And you can share your thoughts with us by filling out a comment card about any item on the meeting agenda or by reaching out to us directly with any other thoughts, questions, or ideas. We need you to fill out the comment card in advance that can be read into the record for any agendized item. The link to the comment cards can be found on our committee webpage at www.tempe.gov/HSCS. And you will also find contact information for committee members and staff there for non-agendized questions as well. So I would like to call to order the April 28th, 2023 meeting of the Human Services and Community Safety Committee today. So Joel, you have number 2.
Yeah, going with that, we're going to go ahead and review meeting minutes, and I'm going to move approval for March 17th, 2023's meeting minutes. Doreen, do you
And
approve?
I second, yep, I second those. They're good.
All right, sounds good. You're on.
All right. All right. Number 3, item number 3, the committee welcomes public comment. According to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the committee may only discuss matters listed on the agenda. Matters are brought up by the public under public appearances that are not listed on the agenda cannot be discussed by the committee. We have 30 minutes allotted for public comment with up to 2 minutes per speaker. Speakers will be called in the order of the comment cards where they were received. Any comments not presented today will be entered into public record. So our staff, do you have public comment cards and are you ready and prepared for this?
We do. The first one is Mo. But I am not seeing them online. Are you seeing them online? We have a Mo in the audience.
You're the
Okay.
next.
We're gonna go with the next one. The next one is Joanna Matarin. Looks like she is online, so I'm gonna allow you to have your mic. Your 2 minutes start whenever you're ready. Joanna, you're able to turn on your mic whenever you're ready.
Maybe we can come back to her if she, okay.
Yeah. Next, we have Luke Douglas. Not seeing a Luke Douglas online. I'm not seeing this person online, but it looks like we have and apologize for mispronouncing your name, Gurpreet Sandhu. Okay, gonna go to the next speaker. Next, we have a Jay Sidhu. Jay, I'm not seeing a Jay online.
Mute name, like just say you're here now.
Oh,
I'm here now.
okay. Joanna, your 2 minutes start whenever you're ready.
Okay, perfect. I'm ready. So, hello, good afternoon. My name is Joanna, and I'm the owner of Mainon Mill Smoke Shop located in Tempe. And I just wanted to thank you guys for not going forward with the flavor ban as of now. We currently have invested in a scan system to age verify, as our products are only sold and purchased by adults. We have been in business for over 20 years, and we support our community in Tempe. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I'm gonna turn off your mic. Next, we have Amanda Gray. Amanda, your mic is on whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. For the record, my name is Amanda Gray. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Petroleum Marketers Association. We represent gas stations, convenience stores, and fuel distributors across the state and in the city of Tempe. We've been very involved in this process since it began. We appreciate all of the time and energy that both the members of the council as well as staff have spent with us to hear about our concerns. We agree with the decision to remove the flavor ban provisions from consideration of the ordinance. And we have some concerns about the ordinance as it's currently drafted. We'd love to be able to provide some in-depth feedback on any new drafts that are developed. One piece of feedback is that the introduction section is out of date. It's citing 2018 National Youth Tobacco Survey data. We have 2022 data, so let's use that. We think that the requirement that retailers remove tobacco products from their shelves if their license is suspended is really unnecessarily punitive and wasteful of time and effort. If the goal is that when your license is suspended, that products are out of sight, then we think covering them should achieve that without all the man hours that would be needed to remove products from the shelves and restock a few days later. We have questions about the fees in the program. They seem to be based on the City of Flagstaff and Tucson programs, which don't include an active enforcement that the City of Tempe is thinking of. The costs to administer the new program are unknown, and retailers are concerned about that because we are likely to be the ones to pay for those costs. So we think really understanding the cost of the program is critical. We have some concerns about grounds to deny a license. We think that retailers should be able to appeal an initial finding of an underage sale since the penalties are cumulative and they stack. We want to know about the costs of mandatory training.
Amanda, we'll give you another 15 seconds.
Thanks. We'd be glad to talk more in depth. We think it would be very helpful to see a draft in advance with adequate time to give you good feedback, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide input. Thanks.
Okay, the next speaker is Aquil. Sorry if I butcher your name. I'm going to allow your mic, so you should be good to talk whenever you're ready.
No worries. Good afternoon, Council. I'd like to take a second to express my gratitude to the City of Tempe and its representatives for not outlawing flavored tobacco. Businesses will continue to abide by the regulations, and we aim to establish a set of rules to safeguard both of our communities and our businesses, considering that bans like this unfairly penalizes Tempe businesses in particular. So once again, thank you, and we will work closely with the officials of Tempe to establish laws and licenses. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. The next is Mark Miller. Mark, your mic is allowed.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great. Again, just to pass on our thank you for allowing us to participate. For the record, my name is Mark Miller. I'm the president of the Arizona Food Market Alliance, and we help support the grocery stores and the major convenience stores across all of Arizona, and including the city of Tempe. The only thing that I really like to bring up is about the education component. It seems to be, from what I've seen, it's not really part of your plan, and we would like to see if there's something that can be developed, and we would certainly be willing to help with that. We could even be part of that as it relates to our retailers and possibly even in the high schools. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I got a speeding ticket about 1.5 years ago. And one of my options was that I could take an online class that cost about the same amount as the ticket itself, but it gave me the option to clear the record. And I just think maybe that's something, as you're looking at the enforcement and the penalties, that maybe you give the opportunities for the retailer and their employees the opportunity to take some education, learn exactly what's entailed for the driver's license, the IDing and everything else involved. And I think it might go a long way to helping reduce it for any other further types of offenses. So, but again, you guys have done a wonderful job in this process, and we really appreciate being allowed to be part of it. And again, from our food industry, thank you for all that you do.
Perfect. Thank you. The next one is Zeba Merchant. I'm not seeing them on here. Okay. We'll go next to Stephanie Siete. Stephanie, I just allowed your mic, so you should be good to go.
Okay, now you can hear. Now you can hear me.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, sorry, I undid my mic too. Okay, again, sorry. Stephanie Siete, Public Information Officer for Community Bridges. We work in behavioral health. I've done that for the Valley for over 20 years, and try to educate the general public through venues at the Tempe Coalition, Parents Against Vaping and E-Cigarettes and Tobacco-Free Kids. And it's a true passion of mine. And I'm with kids daily. I was with them today, yesterday, and we were just talking about how legal does not mean safe. And there's way too many products that are out there that tempt these kids with flavors. You know, I mean, we've been talking about this, like we said, for so many months, year and a half plus. But just reminders, you guys. I mean, there's over 15,000 flavors, and you can't say that orange, mango, grapefruit, choco donut isn't targeting our youth. You guys, some of you are stating data. Yes, there's still 2.5 million kids out there using flavored cigarettes. You're using cigarettes, using e-cigarettes, and over 85% of them started because it tasted good, because it was flavored. I think that a lot of this just comes down to common sense. You know, I mean, we've got to choose health over money. I can't say enough that legal does not mean safe. If anything, we try to control and set the tone because we can't control the culture. And I'm going to share with you guys on this live and call that I just saw this last night. There's a TikTok going around showing kids. This came from an 8th grader yesterday. He's like, oh, everyone's seen it. Showing that vaping is safer if you put a vape in a jar versus like a cigarette. Just how like vaping doesn't burn and it's not as bad. We're trying to keep it out of the hands of kids, and this is middle school kids trying to look at TikTok videos. We cannot control the culture. I get that, but we can remove the temptation in the products. We do have to educate. We do have to let Tempe be a leader and protect and advocate for our kids. I'm so glad that you guys are looking at licensing. That's awesome. And that's a step in the right direction. But we've got to remove the temptation, move the products, remove the flavors, just get a little more educated as a city to protect our youth. So thank you so much for your time.
Next person is Dante San Miguel. I'm going to allow your mic. You should be good to go whenever. Dante, your mic is allowed. You should be good. Okay, we are going to move on to the next person. The next person is Doug Ball. Your mic is allowed whenever.
Thank you for this time. Appreciate it. I'm Doug Ball, representing Jackson's Food Stores. We have 11 convenience stores in the valley there, and one of them is in Tempe. I would like to thank the committee, the council, for not enacting the flavor ban at this time and continuing to look at the permitting and education processes. We have stores in 7 western states, and we've dealt with local flavor bans before. And what we find is that that business just goes to communities outside the one where the flavor ban has been enacted. We're starting to see some of these be reversed. In California, just this week in Antioch, they had more restrictive tobacco laws, regulations than the state had. We've got a store there. It was down 65% in our tobacco sales because nobody was shopping there. And just this week, they reversed their amendment that put these additional restrictions on. So they listened to the business leaders, and I appreciate you guys also taking the business community into effect. And regarding the earlier comments on these flavors like Choco Berry Donut, we don't do any products like that. We stay out of that. Typically, what we're seeing is, the menthols, that kind of thing, that are catering to our adult consumers. And we just don't want to be restricted in selling these legal products to our adult consumers that want them. And thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you. Next is Brian Hummel. Oh, Dante, we'll come back to you. Brian, your mic is allowed.
Great, thank you. My name is Brian Hummel. I'm the Arizona Director of Government Relations for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. We advocate to advance the mission of the American Cancer Society through public policy. You've heard from me before many times, so thank you for indulging me again. Tobacco remains the #1 cause of preventable disease, disability, and death in the United States. Smoking increases the risk of at least 13 different types of cancer. And while the city is currently not contemplating prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco, we continue to think that you should. A license is a good step, and it's important for the enforcement that the city can and should do more in the tobacco control space, and view this particular public health issue comprehensively. We stand ready to work with you in good faith as we have throughout this process. It is critically important that as you consider the license aspect, that you look at the definitions, that you look at every single aspect of this. As you can already hear, some folks who pledged that they would be wholeheartedly behind enforcement and a license are already starting to backpedal on that. And we would encourage you to have a strong license based on evidence-based policies that have already been in effect in communities throughout the country. Thank you very much for the time, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Perfect. Thank you. Next, we have Nicole Olmstead, and I'm not seeing her on. Okay. Next, we have Bernice Carver.
Oh, Nicole's at the very top. Oh, she's on. Go back to Nicole. She's on.
She the external?
No, she's at the top.
I'm not seeing Nicole.
I will unmute her.
Bernice, we're gonna go to Nicole quick.
Hi, yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Nicole Olmstead. I am the Government Relations Director for the American Heart Association. I am also a Tempe resident. I work in Tempe. My kids go to school in Tempe, have lived in Tempe for many, many years. So I feel like this absolutely affects not only myself, but my family, my children. My nicotine addicted daughter, who was roped into flavored tobacco products, flavored vaping products at the age of 16, and is now up to the equivalent of a carton a week of flavored tobacco products. And so I definitely feel like we need to continue adding that in. I wanted to correct something that was said just a moment ago about Antioch, California. I think it's unfortunate that we are hearing that things are being rolled back. I've had an opportunity to view that ordinance. The actual flavored piece of that ordinance is not being rolled back. It has to do with cigars and cigarillos. It is not something that is applicable in this situation. I applaud the city for taking into account the tobacco retail licensing piece of this. There's still a large portion of that that's missing with compliance checks. Having a complaint-driven compliance check process is about as effective as asking the retailers to self-declare that they have been compliant. It is not going to be effective. It is not going to stop people from selling to those who are underage. And so I really think that that is a piece that absolutely needs to continue to be included. And I would urge you to go ahead and move forward with putting flavors back into this. And we stand ready to help, have a very effective tobacco retail licensing piece and want to be part of those discussions. And thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Perfect, thank you. We're gonna go back to Bernice. So your mic is allowed whenever you're ready.
Okay, there. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Bernice Carver. I live up in Flagstaff, and I want you to know that whatever you decide on your ordinances is not only going to affect the youth, the kids and the students in Tempe, it's going to affect all of the kids statewide. And I'm really concerned about the exemption for marijuana. I really feel strongly that there should be no exemptions for hemp or marijuana or any other drug that contains nicotine or any synthetic nicotine product. That would just create a giant loophole that the tobacco industry will jump through willingly, and they're really good at morphing to get their addiction out there and to create more customers. 8 million people die a year from tobacco addiction, and tobacco is the only drug that is, when used as intended, kills people. And I have experienced it in my own family. I am a retired health educator for the health department up here. I'm a semi-retired tobacco cessation specialist, and I know how hard people try to kick this addiction. And it's so hard. And all the people that have spoken against these ordinances or are trying to put things in it to make it weaker, they're all profiting off of other people's addiction. And they have to start with the kids, because over 90% of the people that become addicted to tobacco start as kids, and they need those kids. They're here trying to make it easier to sell tobacco products to kids.
That's your 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing, and I hope you continue with the vaping flavors ordinance also. Thank you.
Okay, Dante, we're gonna come back to you, so I'm gonna allow your mic if you're available. Dante? Dante, I'm gonna disable your mic and then we'll try to come back to you at the end. Okay, so now we have in-person speaker cards. First is Joe Uhas.
Good afternoon, Councilman Navarro, Councilwoman Garland, members of Tempe City staff. Joe Uhas with the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. I'm going to fly through my 3-minute statement in 2 minutes. Tempe leaders are to be credited for recognizing there is a serious problem with underage smoking in the community. Tempe is inundated with tobacco retailers, 154 and growing. Let's be clear, this is an industry that targets kids. An overwhelming number of tobacco users start at an early age, propelling them into adulthood with a lifetime of nicotine addiction. I challenge you to tell me of anyone you know in your life, friends, coworkers, members of your family, perhaps even your parents, as was in my case, who began smoking in their 60s, the 50s, their 30s, even their late 20s. That's why this industry hawks products in kid-friendly flavors. And it's no coincidence that over 25% of Tempe tobacco retailers are within the prohibited distance limit of schools established by city ordinance. Is licensing needed and a positive step? Absolutely. Because Tempe has a horrendous rate of sales to kids, with over 50% of tobacco retailers issued citations over the last 5 years. But the creation of a licensing program is one part of the solution. That's why the Tempe Flavors Coalition has called for an ordinance to end the sale of all flavored tobacco products. We need both licensing and restrictions to flavored tobacco products. What does the tobacco industry want? It wants the status quo. It wants preemption by the legislature to prevent you from addressing what leaders in your own school district say is an epidemic. It doesn't even want licensing. Look no further than the Tempe Forum results in its comments. While overwhelming number of those taking the survey, 75% support licensing, the percentage opposed to both licensing and raising the age to 21 closely mirrors the 26% of those taking the survey who own, manage, or work at a tobacco retailer. Now we have additional proof of the sense of urgency here in Tempe. Last week, you and your colleagues were subjected to another barrage of mistruths by an out-of-town retailer seeking to open up a vape shop here in Tempe. But being pushed out of California, truth won. You said no. More of this activity will be coming forward unless you act, as other states and communities have, to end the sale of these flavored products that target kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Chanel. On deck is Joanna Srother.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Navarro and also Garland. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Chanel Poe, and I'm here representing Flavors Hook Kids Tempe. I am also an education advocate. Thus far, we have heard from the American Heart, Cancer, and Lung Association. I want to remind this council and this committee that this is the Human Services and Community Safety, not the Economic Development Committee. We have been having these conversations for over a year and a half and really brought these not only the healthcare disparities, the health disparities that we see, but also the health epidemic that we are seeing within our elementary schools that's leading up to our middle schools and high schools. You even have local districts here in Tempe that had filed litigation against a tobacco distributor due to it being out of control. While we appreciate you taking the step to establish licensing because the state should have did it a long time ago, it still appears and the perceptions as if it's a stream of revenue opposed to the health and well-being of our children who are our future. We know, I know personally, and I discussed it here, that tobacco has targeted communities in different ways, and they have targeted the Black community in such a way through menthol, through giving free cigarettes during World War II, to now that 85% of Black smokers are addicted to menthol. We are asking that you go back to the original language proposed to put a restriction on the flavors. We didn't say ban all tobacco. There is no proven case of where this ordinance has been adopted with the flavor restriction that tobacco retailers and smoke shops went out of business. All flavors, all products, all location, our children cannot wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. And the next is Floyd.
Council members, staff, my name is Joanna Struther. I am the Senior Director of Advocacy for the American Lung Association. In considering the enactment of a tobacco retailer license ordinance, Tempe leaders are credited and recognized that there is a serious problem with teens under the age who are using tobacco products in the community, and that needs to be addressed. That also reflects the same concerns presented by public health groups, the Flavor Hooks Kids Tempe Coalition, and many other groups and citizens here in Tempe. Tempe is experiencing high rate of sales to underage kids, with 53% of Tempe's tobacco retailers issued citations for the sale of tobacco products to kids under the age for over the past 5 years. Many on multiple occasions, and 14 times they've been cited. A retailer license that is comprehensive, which includes annual compliance checks, a penalty structure that includes suspension and revocation of the license is needed to keep our kids safe and healthy. The Lung Association is disappointed that after many meetings and many months of work, the proposed ordinance just doesn't go far enough to truly protect our kids from flavored tobacco products. A recent poll conducted by Lake Research Partners found that a solid majority, 61% of Tempe voters, favor an ordinance to end the sale of all flavored tobacco products, and only 33% oppose that. Tempe voters prioritize preventing addiction in young people over other arguments against ending the sale of flavored e-cigarettes, menthol-flavored cigarettes, and other tobacco products. We appreciate the time you've taken to hear our concerns over so many months of work, and we truly look forward to continuing the work to solve this public health issue. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. We have Floyd and then Paul next.
Good afternoon, Councilman Navarro and Councilwoman Garland. As a Tempe resident, I applaud the city in its first step in addressing the tobacco and vaping use of minors. The licensing ordinance will help in this matter, but more must be done to really affect change. A comprehensive ordinance that includes the end of selling flavored tobacco products must be enacted. Flavors are what entice kids to use tobacco products. When it tastes or smells like some kind of candy that masks the harshness of the product, it is easy for kids to use. And when I was a youth, I experimented with tobacco through menthol, which has been targeted through the Black community for decades. Now, listening to some of the retailers and vaping shops, you would think that vaping is the new vitamin C that's going to help everybody gain great health. Well, it is a vitamin C that produces cancer, congestive heart failure, and other health disparities. And as African Americans disproportionately suffer from health disparities, if you lose a breadwinner or co-winner, it will throw your family into financial chaos, and not to mention depression. I encourage the Tempe City Council and this committee to endorse an ordinance that includes all flavored tobacco products, including menthol. With over 45,000 African Americans dying from tobacco-related illnesses each year, families are suffering financially, emotionally, and a comprehensive ordinance that ends the sale of all flavored tobacco products need to be enacted as soon as possible. I thank you and I applaud the council in this effort. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Next is Paul and then Roderick, and then Graham, we will have time for your comments if you still want to talk. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilman Navarro, Councilmember Garland, staff for the opportunity to be here. My name is Paul Uhlin. I'm here as the past chair of the board of Arizona Business Education Coalition. We are a business education group advocating for K-12 education across the state, including all 3 Tempe school districts. We are here speaking in support of this and of the licensing ordinance, and in fact, a ordinance to ban the sale of all flavored tobacco products. This has been a lengthy and inclusive process. We support it. We understand this is an important first step in protecting the Tempe community and Tempe youth from big tobacco. Over the past 18 months, This subcommittee and council have heard from the community to please stop the sale of flavored tobacco. Licensing is the first and most important step in this process. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Roderick, and then Graham, you're up next.
Greetings to the Tempe City Council. I'm going to make it short. So having actually smoked a carton of menthol cigarettes a week by age 16 and worked at the world headquarters for Philip Morris Tobacco in New York City from 1999 to 2002, the fact that we are actually debating these old 1990s denials of marketing to children and minority children in 2023 is really laughable. It would be like if someone asked you to watch a movie on VHS in 2023. It's played out no matter what anyone says on behalf of their wallet, and I underline wallet. Number two, direct marketing to children and child flavors, cotton candy, bubble gum, and fruit flavors. If they were really marketing to adults, you would see adult flavors like steak, tiramisu, cognac, baked potatoes, champagne, and wine. But you don't because they're marketing to children. Number three, fork in the road. Choose children and youth at Tempe or Big Tobacco. If you choose Big Tobacco, I have contacts for that just to be transparent to turn Tempe into Tobacco Town. And trust me, the tobacco industry will be on board. Number four, the final point is if this was a public safety issue and we saw traffic speeds endangering the public like this, there would be no debate, no series of debates. Unfortunately, what we are doing here is valuing our cars more than our children, and it shows. So let's be on board, let's be transparent. This is a money play, and let's rule for the children, and maybe Tempe could set a standard for the state of Arizona. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. Next we have Graham, and then Dante, we're gonna try to come back to you after.
Greetings. Thanks for having me, Councilmember Navarro and Garland. My name is Graham Matthews. I've been a Tempe resident for over 20 years, and I went to ASU. A vape ban would result in consumers smoking tobacco, and tobacco killed 10,000 people today. Vape has been in existence for nearly 20 years. It started in Europe, and it has eventually become popular in all other parts of the world. If tobacco usage had started 20 years ago, there would be innumerable deaths numbering in the millions. In the 20 years of vape usage, we have 0 recorded deaths. Surely if someone died of vape, we would hear about it more than the 10,000 people that died of tobacco today. Why is that? We all have friends and loved ones that smoke tobacco. It makes us all concerned for their health and well-being. Secondhand smoke is proven to be deadly and hazardous to the public, unlike vapor, which dissipates into the air instantly once it is exhaled, posing no danger to other people nearby. Once a smoker has converted to vape, even if they smoked for 10, 20, 30 years of their life, it will now be extended by quitting smoking. Let's not move backwards in a world of nasty, headache-causing, deadly secondhand smoke. Let's move forward in a world of delicious, enjoyable flavors that coincide with every other aspect of life, like the foods we eat and the beverages we enjoy. A world of healthy, life-saving vape flavors, and a world that will someday finally extinguish the stench of nasty, stale tobacco smoke entering our lungs forever. Thank you for your time and your service to the Tempe community.
Thank you, Dante. I'm gonna allow your mic one last time. You should be good to go.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, my name is Dante San Miguel, and in 2021, I was affected by a vape, which left me in the hospital fighting for my life for over a month. I was on a lunch break with a coworker of mine, and she had asked me to hit her strawberry kiwi flavored vape. I said, no, I'm good, because I never really loved vaping, but she said the flavor, it tasted so good. It's the best flavor she's ever had. I take a hit of that vape, and the next morning I wake up with 103-degree fever. My whole body was shaking, and my lungs had felt like they were on fire. I then spent a long stay in the ICU. I lost ability to walk. I couldn't have conversations. I couldn't clean my own body without my oxygen plummeting. I was close to being put on a ventilator and had to go through the approval process of a double lung transplant, all because of one reaction caused by a strawberry kiwi flavored vape. This vape I know was sold to her as a minor from a smoke shop. So I love hearing that that all of these smoke shops are regulating and they're making sure that they're only selling it to adults. But the truth is that's just not the truth. There's so many kids I know. No one has these dealers that are selling vapes. Everyone gets them from these smoke shops. Everyone pays cash and that's how it's done. So I want to hear the priority in the kids' safety, because I never knew that hitting a strawberry kiwi, a cotton candy, a bubblegum flavored vape was going to put me in the position that I was fighting for my life, while we don't even have correct punishment set up for the smoke shop to be held accountable for this issue. So again, I just support us pushing forward licensing and just really focusing on prioritizing the kids' lives. I know that businesses are all at stake, but we have to remember what the priority is, and that's this future generation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dante. That is it for public comment.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you so much for everybody who's taken the time to make a comment either in person or online. We really do appreciate hearing from you. It does make a difference. So the next item that we have are committee session items. We're going to update on the proposed ordinance to regulate the sale of tobacco through a tobacco seller license within the city of Tempe. And I'd like to welcome Council Aide Madeleine McConville and Council Aide Sarah Keown to do the presentation.
Can you hear us okay? Perfect, okay. Good afternoon, Councilmember Garland and Navarro. My name is Madeleine McConville.
Sarah Keown.
Perfect, we're gonna provide you an update. So.
Sorry, Maddie.
Just waiting to get the presentation up. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, can you get it? Perfect. Okay, so the project aligns with Council Priority 1.21, Youth Alcohol, Marijuana, and Opioid Usage Rate. This aligns with one of your performance measures. So the background of this initiative really started at the City Council work study session back in November of 2021. It's really worked through this committee. You've had public input processes, and you can see the meetings below. Today, why we're here is Council for this committee, just really to recommend advancing the draft ordinance that focuses on raising the required age for tobacco purchase to 21 and then establishing a licensing fee and program for tobacco sellers.
How did we get here with laws and purpose? Back in 2019, the Amendment to Food and Drug Cosmetic Act to raise the federal age from 18 to 21 was signed into law. Arizona is one of 10 states that does not have a statewide tobacco licensing registry. A couple of the reasons for licensing registry would include retailers that sell tobacco products must comply with all tobacco laws or risk losing their license to sell tobacco. It's also decreased access to tobacco products, which in turn leads to decrease in youth prevalence. Controls the location and density of tobacco retailers and also allows for the imposition of additional restrictions on the sale of tobacco products. Currently, there are a few local municipalities that have already raised the age from 18 to 21, such as Tucson, Flagstaff, Cottonwood, Douglas, and Goodyear. I think that's what, as you can see here on this slide, Tempe is in line with what other municipalities are currently doing with this proposed ordinance, having a $300 annual licensing fee. And then with noncompliance, the first strike of a $500 penalty, second strike, a $750 penalty, third strike, up to $10,000 penalty, and the fourth strike could lead to license revocation. The Tempe proposed tobacco ordinance currently to date is to increase the minimum age from 18 to 21, to implement that licensing and fee of $300 for vendors and have that violation fee structure in place. The exemption would be the provision of tobacco products to use as indigenous practice or lawfully recognized religious, spiritual, or cultural ceremony. This is a collaborative effort between city departments, which would involve tax and licensing, which would maintain the database and be the intake that would be issuing the notifications, signs, and revocations for noncompliance. The police department would be part of the enforcement. This would be a response driven to complaints. They would be having collaboration with our state agencies and continue our relationship with the Attorney General's office and other possible future partnerships to be considered. The Tempe Council would monitor the data and consider future program modifications.
Perfect. Okay, so the public involvement process. So specifically for this ordinance, there was 2 public meetings, both on March 20th. One was virtual, one was in person. Roughly 60 people attended both the virtual and in person, so roughly 120 people at those meetings altogether that day. There's a public survey that was open via the Tempe Forum on March 20th to April 3rd. 188 responses total. 85 of those respondents actually provided us an address, the graph on, or the map on the right. Approximately 75% of those 85 respondents are in Tempe. There's also a plethora of other ways that we received feedbacks, emails, council communicators, phone calls, etc. So here are the results of the survey. The first question, do you support establishing a tobacco sales license in the city of Tempe? 72% said yes, 24% said no. The next question, if a tobacco sales license is established, do you support the proposed fee to ensure compliance? I should say fee. 71% said yes, 24% said no. The next question, do you support increasing the minimum age for purchase of tobacco products to 21? 75% said yes, 22% said no. Next question, do you currently use tobacco products? The next 2 questions were really just to engage the demographics of people who were responding to the survey. 57% said no, they don't use tobacco products. 26% said yes, and then 17% actually said that they did used to use tobacco products. The last question is, do you currently own, manage, or work at an establishment that sells tobacco products? 21% said yes, 76% said no. So all in all, the proposed tobacco ordinance that you guys are considering today is to establish a tobacco sales license, enacting those fees like Sarah discussed to ensure compliance, raising the minimum age of tobacco purchase to 21 years old, and then of course there are exemptions for indigenous practices or a lawfully recognized religious, spiritual, or cultural ceremony or practice unless that person is under or is younger than 21. So next steps, we're presenting to you all. So potentially the presentation would be to the entire council via a work study session on June 8th. If the council decides to proceed, then we would have legal posting requirements pending council consensus. That's 60 days. There would then be 2 public hearings, which is normal for an ordinance at regular council meetings. This would probably occur late summer unless this is pushed back for some reason. And then of course, if council decides to pass the ordinance, there would still be continued implementation, observation, and evaluation, even after. And I think that's it. Any questions?
No, thank you. Thank you, guys. And I appreciate the comments. Doreen, Councilman Garland, you okay? I was going to speak real quick.
I'm good. I just wanted to say that I think the fees and fine structures that was set up with this is very appropriate. I think aligning them with the other cities who are already doing this, I think is a great idea. I think we have been working really hard on this for over a year and a half, trying to find the right fit and the right steps to take to move this along for this health and safety of our community. And I think this is a good first step in that direction. And so, if Joel is good and with your comments, I'll let you have the floor in just a moment. I'm comfortable with moving this to the work study session and to our council colleagues to consider an establishment of the sales license and fines and fees for the city of Tempe. So I'm good. I think you guys have done a great job. Thank you so much.
No, that's perfect. I agree with everything you just said. I think the staff did a great job. I know this has been a very long process to get to this point, obviously, but this was an organic process that the community has brought up, and eventually we got the stakeholders involved to try to do our best in managing this issue. I know that there's probably going to be more conversation on this. Obviously, the work study is going to be the point where you have another opportunity to voice opinions and concerns. The whole council of the whole will be weighing in on, and there will be more questions at that meeting also. I know that there's 2 things that came up with the 3 strikes or 4 strikes I'm always under the old impression, 3 strikes, you're out. But, I guess more consideration why 4 strikes. And we can dance to that at the work study meeting. In addition, just the state and the involvement with their resources. And I ask you this at the next meeting, just to kind of, the depth of that and how they can help with the enforcement and working with PD on this. Obviously, those were one of the biggest concerns was not putting our police officers in a position where they're doing more things. We're trying to take more things off their plate to handle more just official policing in general and making our public safe. So the other options or I'm sure those are going to be questions from the other council members. The other one last thing is if we can just organize an operations flow chart on this and just making sure that we have an idea of how this looks visually so people can understand the depth of this. I think it's great. Thanks, guys.
Okay, just to confirm, information about enforcement, just kind of rationale behind the current strike. Okay, I mean, just to mention it, I think we just wanted to be in line with what the other cities were doing. I don't know if there's additional information that you may have on the current, Sarah may have on the current kind of the rationale behind the way that the fees
and I'm sure there is rationale behind it. I'm just curious.
Perfect. Anything else?
It's a great question. There has been some great works with Tempe PD, Commander Hale especially, that has done a really great job engaging with our partnerships both at the state level and with the Attorney General's office. And there is some opportunities there as well moving forward that we can further explore. So those things are happening and in the works.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, next up we got.
Great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, great, thank you.
Okay, next up on the presentation is Council. We're going to have Waddell L. Holmes in her Department Strategic Management Innovation Office, and she's going to present on Community Safety Strategic Plans.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Navarro, Councilmember Garland. Thank you again for the invitation to present an update to your committee regarding the Community Safety Strategic Plan. Before we begin, I'd like to just share a little bit about the format for today's presentation. We'd like to provide a little bit of background as well as highlights and some next steps. But most importantly, I'd like to share that with recent changes in leadership across the city, I'm very pleased to have amongst the presenters today our Interim Police Chief Josie Montenegro, our Deputy Director of Community Health and Human Services, Paul Bentley, I'm not going to forget anybody, our new IT Director, Jared Morris, as well as the Police Department's new Wellness Coordinator, Brad Hollingsworth. And so you'll see several faces up here during the next few minutes, but we'll try to keep it brief and we'll be open for questions at the end or comments and suggestions as well. And I also forgot Jeff Tamulevich, the Director of Community Development. My apologies, Jeff.
That guy.
But you'll see kind of which pillar they're presenting today. And when they do present each pillar, it's not an indication that they're the only leaders and owners of that particular pillar. It's just for the brevity of the presentation, we didn't want to bring up, the 50 plus people that work on this strategic plan. So with that, I'll start off. Just as a reminder, for information about the Community Safety Strategic Plan, we have several communication avenues. The first thing is we have our performance measure dashboard, which is aligned with our City Council's priorities. The Community Safety Strategic Plan was really initially adopted to leverage and advance our police services satisfaction ratings as well as our trust score here in our community. We also have stood up a web page, and this was stood up alongside the initial Public Safety Advisory Task Force web page that continues to have information on it, as well as within that web page, we have our dashboard that provides periodic updates on the progress of the plan. Wow, that didn't turn out well, did it, in translation? So the Public Safety Advisory Task Force was formed by newly elected Mayor Corey Woods in the summer of 2020. By October, we started meeting and had over 11 sessions with the community. These were all virtual during the pandemic. And the 22-member advisory group really created conversations around lived experiences from all spectrums and walks of life. And so there was a lot of very diverse thoughts, as well as people sharing their lens on the world when it comes to community safety here in Tempe. At the end of that process, a draft plan, which was inspired by the task force recommendations, was created that had 5 pillars. From that, we've actually incorporated a 6th pillar, which is environmental design for safety. And I'm very excited to have the community development team really shepherding that forward across departments such as the police department, as well as with engineering and transportation. By June of 2021, after several updates to the task force, the Public Safety Advisory Task Force Committee was concluded, as that was an ad hoc committee formed by the mayor. And then quickly in the fall of 2021 through current day, we have stood up our public dashboard, which included some user training, as well as initiated the first phase of our data transparency initiative. So with that, I'll turn it over to Interim Chief Josie Montenegro for our first pillar, which is police model and accountability.
All right, so thank you, Council Members Navarro and Garland. I appreciate the time and effort that went into the recommendations with the goal of improving relationships between the police department and the community that we serve. While all recommendations may not have been feasible for various reasons, we did move forward with many, which we intend to highlight some of the accomplishments, as well as provide an overview of some of the recommendations that we are working on now. So I'm here to discuss the first pillar, police model and accountability. Some achievements we've accomplished related to the recommendations include the following. The police department analyzed police calls for service to determine what calls can be diverted and handled by unarmed, non-badged employees or partnering agencies. The police department contracted with and embedded a professional mental health crisis team called Solari within our dispatch location to more easily divert and hand over calls which involve mental health crisis and do not require a uniformed patrol response. There are times when a sworn officer is needed to respond to those in crisis. The Tempe Police Department increased the number of crisis intervention team officers to recognize persons in distress. We currently have over 60% of field patrol officers trained in CIT, and this exceeds the national recommended average of 20%. With community policing and relationship building in mind, we also created foot patrols for the Tempe downtown community. This is a collaboration between HOPE, neighborhood ambassadors, and police officers. The positive interactions and relationship building have helped to address quality of life issues of those in the community, connect the unhoused with resources, and address minor issues with the goal of preventing larger public safety concerns. And then just a couple of our next steps. We are now working with Care 7 to integrate their mental health response into the Solari dispatch model. As the Family Advocacy Center has finally come into fruition, the Tempe Police Department joined Care 7 and moved the first squad of detectives into the FAC a couple weeks ago. The first squad is the Special Victims Unit, and we will continue to work on moving over the second squad, which will be the Family Crime Squad. This collaboration helps to ensure victims are provided with the best services possible, and we plan to see a detective and Care 7 co-respond at least 20% of the time from the FAC to calls in the field. As the city moves forward with reinitiating the Park Ranger program, the program will be embedded within Parks and Recreation. The PD will continue to collaborate and provide the support needed to train the new members on safety, engagement, and resources.
All right, I'd like to welcome up Deputy Director of Community Health and Human Services, Paul Bentley.
Good afternoon. Continuing with Interim Chief Montenegro's conversation, we move into the pillar of human and social services. And with that, significant component of the Public Safety Advisory Task Force was focused on looking for alternative means to provide solutions for our community and services to our community rather than directly from a law enforcement personnel. And that's where Community Health and Human Services is a significant component of that, one of many, but also a part within the City of Tempe as its own department. These highlights are just that, highlights of what's been occurring over the last year to promote this response and as can be read, but also seen as the re-imaging of the Department of Human Services into a Department of Community Health and Human Services. So adding more breadth to the services that are being provided and also recognizing the services that have been in place. Within that, Care 7 has been a service provider in our community for over 20 years, over 2 decades. And with that, with the leadership of Chris Charlo, our manager, I'm happy to report about the Family Advocacy Center and the ability for that to have been not only implemented, but fully operational and providing services to those in need. Victims of crime have the ability to go to one location to receive a multitude of services, including trauma healing and victim services. Within that lens, we wanted to continue to communicate that Care 7 is an independent entity from law enforcement and that it is within the Community Health and Human Services Department. While a significant partner of our police department and Tempe Fire Medical Rescue, they are an independent entity. With that, we have received support from Mayor and Council with increased funding, specifically with Care 7 positions, as well as within our community supervision and counseling services with counseling services. And from that, we have been able to initiate a mental health response team known as My Heart. And many of these items that are being spoken about are associated with the intentionality of providing a response to the community for mental health and substance use that's directly to meet those needs. Again, independent of having another entity to be there, whether it's law enforcement or the fire department. And so with that, there has been the ability to complete the process with access to be approved as a behavioral health provider, which is a significant component of being part of the behavioral health system here within the county, as well as completing a contract with Mercy Care that establishes the guidelines and the services that will be provided through the system, as long as the eligibility to bill, which is in that final stages of its process. And so with that, next steps. Again, owners, as Wydell was kind enough to say, that there are many hands, and so Chris Charlo is managing many of these, and so thank you, Chris, as well as Jessica Wright, who's with us from Homeless Solutions. But in that, we want to continue to look at and increase services within the Family Advocacy Center, specifically adding medical services. We are intentional of providing clinical counseling and accessibility to clinical counseling within the center. We are striving to fully implement the diversion of Solari, calls going into Solari that need a physical response, that Care 7 is that primary responder for our community in those needs. And from this process that we're going through, we will be able to do that, as well as implement our billing technology so that while we are not going to be billing those who are being served, there is a component through access and through the Mercy Care system to appropriately bill insurance companies that within the system to be able to provide some financial support for the system as well. It's a business case that makes sense.
Oh, it absolutely does. And just real quick on that, transportation, would that be coupled into it? Do we transport Care 7 in some certain cases?
There are times when Care 7 has transported individuals to a place of need, yes, as well as our Home Solutions group.
Is that component not billable? As we talk about with access?
Within the component of billing, I would have to find that answer and get that back to you.
And if not, that's something that just as a city and collectively cities at large need to collectively work with the state to get that going. Yeah. I mean, we just do. Yeah. So, I mean, how we can do that.
Councilmember Navarro, what I can state is that Chris has gone line by line through what is acceptable and not as far as billing purposes, and we can refer on this particular topic.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then in that is also Tempe Works, and that Tempe Works is a component of our home solutions within the city, not only through outreach and engagement, but also shelter services as supported by Mayor and Council, with 2 facilities being served directly connected to the city, as well as our other partners in the community. But in that, Tempe Works is specifically designed to provide an opportunity for individuals not only for shelter to housing solutions, but also employment. And from that, there's a commitment to continue to look for partners within the community to provide additional job opportunities, and we have established a goal to meet that need.
Thanks, Paul. I'd like to welcome our new IT director, Jared Morris, who began with the city right at the conclusion of our first part of our data transparency initiative. So I'm very happy to have him as we move that initiative forward over the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
The initiative, we'll keep him for a while though.
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you, Wydell. Also, thank you to members Garland and Navarro. This is my first opportunity to speak in front of City Council, and just really happy to be here. So wanted to touch on a few updates we have for data transparency. There's of course the key initiative that we have on data transparency. Since our last opportunity, we've developed systems, reports, and designs to better report key information to the public. Of course, specifically, we performed the discovery work for a data transparency system and drafted an RFP for the system implementation. City of Tempe, of course, has published a hate crime map as well as employee demographic dashboards as well, as you can see examples of that on screen. And finally, I've implemented an automated victim notification system, making this information public to victims and their families. Next slide, thank you. This slide shows planned activities, so future activities on data and transparency efforts in the city. By July of this year, we intend on submitting that RFP we've already developed for the data transparency system, and we will also soon after be hiring additional staff to support that project. And thank you to the council as you're considering approval of finances for this next year. That's what we'll pay for these additional staff members. So thank you for considering that. It's also important that we're providing additional key information to the public. You'll notice that items 3 and 4, implementing e-crash or e-accidents, as well as activating e-tickets or e-citations. These systems are typically present in other communities and other cities. I think it's fair to say, even though I wasn't part of the discussion, having reviewed some of the notes, the public was surprised that this information wasn't already available in the city of Tempe. And so we're working very hard to implement these systems along with the data transparency initiative to make sure that that data can not only be collected, but also shared with the public. Finally, we'll be launching a court management system as well. We'll be going through a similar process with design and development, and then implementation of that system. That would also make key demographic and other information available to the public from our criminal justice system, in addition to, of course, our public safety system. And that's what I had.
Great.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And so to move forward with the next pillar, which is community engagement, I'd welcome back Interim Chief Josie Montenegro.
Thank you. I'm back for community engagement. So based on the recommendations, a Chiefs Community Advisory Group was created. This allows community members to have regular meetings and direct communication with the chief to discuss current practices and express any concerns, as well as relay what may be working. The PD has also incorporated community members with PD employees to participate in multiple trainings on the transformational policing model, which focuses on the historical use of force and our marginalized communities. To date, we've had 140 PD employees attend and 75 community members. The police department also has initiated a partnership with Telos to send officers on a pilgrimage to Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama on a training experience to reflect and better understand the distrust of law enforcement in some minority communities. The police department created a podcast that consists of 12 episodes. The podcast we discuss policies, practices, and allow the community to see aspects of how Tempe Police values their perspectives by proactively engaging to bridge gaps through commonality, conversation, diversity, and language. So overall, these podcasts also help humanize our officers. Next steps, we're going to increase the number of community advisors for the Chiefs Community Advisory Group. We also plan to resume in-person meetings, allowing for technical demonstrations and presentations and post presentations online. We'll be prioritizing funding for additional training and certifications aligned with national best practices and increase community forums. We also plan to continue the pilgrimages with Telos.
Thank you. And so the newest member to our Community Safety Strategic Plan team is Brad Hollingsworth. He's the new Wellness Coordinator for the Tempe Police Department.
Good afternoon, council members, Navarro and Garland. I appreciate you letting me be here. So my name is Brad Hollingsworth. I am the Wellness Coordinator for the Police Department, and I'm here to talk about our workforce culture and wellness initiatives we're working on based on recommendations from this task force. So first thing I want to highlight is we implemented the patrol model and trained 100% of our sworn officers in the de-escalation techniques of that model. And then I myself was onboarded. I started August of last year. And so with me coming on board, we're looking and seeking to build out the wellness program as a whole. Part of that, we've started providing peer support and wellness initiatives to the professional staff as well as sworn. So expanding some of the peer support resources to the rest of the staff. We also have been conducting quarterly wellness check-ins with psychologists contracted with the department for our special victims unit and our internet crimes against children's unit. And we are more recently, I've been in some discussions with some of our traffic folks, and we're looking to include our vehicular crimes unit in that as well as we move forward with that process in the future. And then several officers, and myself included, achieved mental health first aid certifications as instructors. And so we're going to use that moving forward to instruct members of the police department. And so going on what Interim Chief Montenegro discussed earlier, the transformational policing model, we currently have 85% of police officers have attended this course. We're looking to achieve 85% of officers attending this course by the end of this year. This is a course that combines both officers and community members. I specifically want to thank Councilmember Garland. I know she put out an announcement speaking about this program, so thank you for that. Moving forward, also, many of our officers have attended the trauma-informed policing and repair training from the Auschwitz Institute. We are now in the process of taking and distilling those trainings internally to create our own internal combination of the programs to create a block of training to then provide to all of our officers. We hope to have that done about midway through next year. In addition, with the new instructors, we're going to look to, we currently have roughly 80% of officers and certified in mental health first aid. We're looking to increase that to 90 plus and 100 moving forward. We now have a physical POPAT incentive in the new MOU for officers this year, so that just got started. We're going to look to establish some metrics of participation in that we want to see. And finally, just this last Friday, we submitted the grant, COPS grant for the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness grant, and we're looking to implement the First Watch Wellness program specifically for professional staff to give them some resources that would provide them some more counseling resources similar to what the Craig Tiger Act provides to our sworn officers. And then launch a new wellness app from Lexpool Cortico. It's a nationwide leader in wellness apps, and they have a lot of content that comes with that. And then with this grant, we're going to also look to establish some metrics within the wellness program for what success looks like moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Before we conclude today, I want to just acknowledge that there are several areas of the strategic plan that are less developed than others. And with that, we know that we can focus on some other areas such as our Victims and Family Bill of Rights. We will be working with the City Attorney's Office, PD Legal Advisor, and Community Health and Services. And as Jeff Tamulevich joins us, I realize that we have one more pillar that we'd like to present. So I don't know why you are on my habit today of forgetting you, Jeff, because you're not forgettable, you're unforgettable. So with that, we'll move to the environmental design for safety. Thank you for your patience on a Friday with me.
I'm going to come up here and present regardless if she
He's
wants
coming
to
up
or not.
anyway,
Yeah.
right?
It might be
Thanks,
a good thing,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Yeah. Councilmember Garland and Councilmember Navarro, my name is Jeff Tamulevich, Community Development Director. The sixth and final pillar is the environmental design for safety. This first slide that we're seeing here has previously been presented to the Public Safety Advisory Task Force, and it showcases the crime prevention through environmental design principles. Now, these principles are often utilized across the city when assessing properties for health and safety. In community development, Code Compliance is creating a sort of our own CEPTED program to assist private properties, both residential and commercial, with reducing potential criminal activity. Next slide. A major component of this program is the first step identified here, which is the newly created Community Development Crime Prevention Planning Coordinator. This position will be housed in Code Compliance and will work closely with not only the Code Compliance team, but also the police department and the planning division. It will both reactively and proactively analyze commercial, industrial, and multifamily properties throughout the city for the review of safety-related design concerns or improvements. A few examples include lighting, landscaping, and building design. This coordinator position will communicate with the private property owners and business owners in an effort to utilize crime prevention strategies for the properties. Our goal is to foster safety and security by minimizing opportunities for crime. This position will expedite the process for properties seeking approval for exterior modifications, either as a result of a violation or something that was recommended with the intent of reducing criminal activity. With all that said, our next step will be to create a new crime prevention planning performance measure, which will be finalized by June 1st, 2023. This measure will assess the work and progress of the coordinator position, as well as analyze the actual safety of private properties through Tempe. And we do this by basically the current code compliance assessment score that combines results from 4 components. The community attitude survey, the business survey, and then we also contract with an agency to provide citywide audits for commercial and residential properties. And we plan on modeling the new crime prevention planning performance measure after exactly what we're doing in code compliance. Number 3, I guess because of this program, we will be also moving forward to an educational initiative. A crime prevention through environmental design website will be added to the code compliance website. We will provide key information, including like what crime prevention is, how business owners and property owners can actually take care of crime prevention measures themselves, and then also how code compliance can assist them in doing that. And then for the 4th and final step, this is the police department has several other crime prevention programs, including Neighborhood Watch, crime-free housing, and code compliance intends on working closely with PD in the future to make sure that we do create a safe community.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jeff. Again, my apologies.
All right.
It won't happen again.
This is Councilmember Garland. I didn't know we had a pillar 6 on there, but I think I think it's wonderful. I think the information that that Jeff just provided is really great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We did want to acknowledge that with the task force, there were 5 pillars, and we know that community safety involves a lot of discipline, a lot of area across the city, and so this was one element that we believed was missing from a total plan that would help move forward community safety in all aspects as it could be defined in the city. So thank you for that recognition with that. So as I said earlier, I would be remiss in concluding without sharing with you that we do have some areas of the plan that while we continue to develop with these strategies, we are also going to be focusing on the, excuse me, the area in regards to Family and Victims Bill of Rights. We know we already have one, but we know that we can look at this from a Tempe-centric perspective, and working with the City Attorney's Office, Police Legal, Community Health and Human Services, as well as maybe other stakeholders, will be bringing that back as we move that forward. The other element is also in regards to a specific item in the plan regarding the Citizens Review Panel, and looking at that in regards to not only meeting the spirit of the recommendations by the task force, but also how Tempe wants to conduct itself in regards to citizen complaints, use of force, and things along those lines. So that is, again, 2 areas that we really will put more focus on in the next fiscal year in regards to how we move those forward. And again, like I said, not only meet the checklist on the plan, but really the spirit in which the task force made their recommendations. With that, I'll conclude.
No, this is great, guys.
you.
You did a tremendous job. Chief or Councilman Garland.
I just want to say, Whitell, thank you so much, and thank you for everybody who presented. You know, I think this task force, these recommendations and strategic plans are really important, and I think, you know, one of the things that we need to do is, as I've said this a few times, is that we need to make sure that the people who participated on the Public Safety Advisory Task Force can see that all those months of hard work that everybody went through are actually being done, taken care of, or in the process of. I think that's really important for the trust in the community, for the community to be able to see that we are doing what we said we were going to do. So I think this is really, really important for us. I love the fact that we have a dashboard for this. I will say that one part of this that was a little hard for me, Whitell, is you know, we have the pillars, and we have the original task force and how it was listed and written up, and it has on it, you know, each pillar, one of the pillars, and then it has number 3 and then ABC, whatever.
Right.
So when I was looking through the slides that were going to be presented today, I was having such a hard time with aligning what we've done and what we are going to be doing with, you know, number 3, section 3, number A underneath whatever pillar. Is there a way that we can put the original Public Safety Task Force Advisory Plan or strategic recommendations somewhere where we could look down it and click on it, and it would link to all of the things that are being done for that pillar, and if it was done or not? That's one thought. The other one was, is it was mentioned that some of the items on the public safety, the original task force, were not feasible to do. Is it possible then we can also write in that number, you know, 2A under whatever is not feasible, and here are the reasons why, so it doesn't look like we're just ignoring it. So those are my only 2 things. Again, I would like to know how often these are getting updated, for the public to know that at least once a month that these departments are checking or updating this. And then the other one was, I'd love to be able to, since this task force strategic plan is under our committee, I'd like to see if maybe it's possible to do, you know, every quarter updates, not anything like you guys did today, but a short, brief update on what has changed, what things have been doing. It'd be nice to be able to have something more on a regular basis. That's all.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you again. And I would like to acknowledge that the task force specifically requested that the city council have a direct link to this plan. And so I'm very appreciative that you and Councilmember Navarro have adopted this as part of the Human Services and Community Safety Action Plan for your committee. That being said, our plan would be to revisit with you quarterly what is going on with the plan. We do know that we'd like to reconcile some of the items that, while we may not act specifically on the recommendation, we do want to address and acknowledge what we have considered, the research that was done in regards to that element of the plan, and where the status is now to either move it forward or to kind of give a conclusion in regards to that specific item. And then in regards to cross-referencing the plan, we certainly can work on that in regards to the original recommendations. Those recommendations are denoted by some numerical reference points, and we did cross-reference that over to the dashboard, but we're still kind of trying to figure out how we can make this a little more user-friendly. On the dashboard that we're using right now, that platform does allow us to start generating quarterly reports, which will also be helpful not only for you as a committee, but more importantly for our community at large, as well as the task force members. We can give updates a little bit easier that way. So we're kind of growing into that space a little bit more each month with, again, staff changes and onboarding new staff. So I'm just very excited about where this was going, as well as, most importantly, achievement of the plan that was recommended, as well as the other components that support really like I said, the spirit of the recommendations and the participation of our community members and our council members.
Thank you, Whitell. That's perfect. And one other recommendation or thought, that we're now calling it the Community Safety Strategic Plan. Is it possible that maybe under it in very small letters somewhere that just says formerly known as the Public Safety Advisory Task Force Strategic, just so that people will know that this isn't something different. It's actually the same thing, but we've kind of changed the name a little bit.
Right. We did want to honor the language that the task force used in their recommendations. And when we moved it over to be a community safety strategic plan and adding an additional element, such as the environmental design pillar for community safety, we knew that we have then now changed the plan slightly lightly. So we will acknowledge that in all of our communications. We do have that on our webpage and our dashboard, but we'll try to make that more prominent just for ease of use.
Great, thank you. That's all I have, Joel.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
More acronyms, that's what we need.
Very good.
I got in trouble at my other job. I named an acronym and I'm like, what is that? She was like, oh my God, this is the Bible of the airport. I was like,
I think I'm going to have a new one, and it's RJT. Remember Jeff Tamulevich. I'm going to have a T-shirt made.
Yeah. Waddell and team, I mean, Paul, Jared, Brad, Jeff, Chief Montenegro is perfect presentation from all you guys. It really was well in depth. Dashboard, I love the fact that that's what we need to build on to see that thing. The more information we get from that dashboard, the better off we are with our community and stuff like that as we go forward. One of the biggest things, and I think it was all said, one of the biggest things is as we go forward with this stuff is when we do these check-ins, I think we really and truly need to know the information. Where are we lacking the support behind the scenes to make this information happen or to make this process happen? Because when we come out with new, whatever we do, and I know it has value with many things that we have to provide as a core value of the city, we just need to make sure that we're staffing it right. We make sure that the workload is there too, to also honor the fact that we need that extra additional person or whatever it may be, and how we're billing for these things and everything like that. I'm just trying to tell you guys, I get it. So you got to voice it, because if it doesn't, it gets overlooked, and we need to make sure this thing runs smoothly. So.
Sure. We would be happy on our quarterly updates to not only provide the specifics of by when, which helps with accountability, as well as knowing how we're balancing moving priorities and competing priorities, as well as the owners of those specific strategies. But we certainly can identify where perhaps we need support in clearing the path for advancing those strategies.
Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. We are, I won't supersede this, but let's see, agenda items for any future meetings with the HSCS committee will be announced at a later date. Councilman Garland?
And then our next meeting for the HSCS committee will be on June 2nd. And if we don't have any other items, we will adjourn the meeting.